as folks are joining us, let me give a little bit of a background and introduction and context. So we're here tonight to gather some feedback from folks who are joining us here in the room and people who are joining us virtually through the webinar. And so we have two members of SMMA who are with us here, and one is actually joining us virtually as well too. And so what we've been doing, we've been conducting a feasibility study this year. It came out of a need to look at how we're utilizing our spaces, looking at the configurations that we have, thinking about what our master plan needs to be for the district for our facility usage specifically. And over a number of years ago, there was a space utilization study that was done, and there was also a separate grade configuration study that was done at different times. And one of the things that we knew, even just a couple of years ago, is that we were looking to see where we might be able to put the administrative offices in the district, knowing that the Millennium Building is past its expected life usage there. So that's a nice way to say that. And so one of the things we started saying is, what capacity do we have within the buildings that we already have? Do we have capacity within our buildings? Are we utilizing them as efficiently as possible? So that was one of our first questions. And so we went out and interviewed a couple of different design firms. Through that process, we selected SMMA to work with us. They've done this for, I don't even remember how many communities.
40?
40 communities. They've done this master plan type project where they've come in and they've toured all of our buildings, and they'll talk a little bit more about that. And then what's going to happen is that they're putting together a formal report for us, and from that formal report, we will develop our next master plan for the district, which will include the 10-year capital items. It'll look to see what recommendations there are for the buildings that we have. And so tonight, we're going to give you a little bit of background information. Phil's going to talk about the process going through the buildings and the study, and then we're going to reach out to all of you who are here with us and folks who are logging in virtually, and give you the opportunity to provide us some feedback through Mentimeter, an interactive tool. So with that, I'd love to introduce Phil Poinella and Rosemary Parks, who are leaders on the project here from SMMA, and I'm going to turn it over to Phil.
Thank you. Are you recording?
It is recording.
Okay,
Yep.
Great. Terrific. Good evening. So I'm an architect and an educational planner, and Rosemary is an architect and educational planner and project manager, and Ben Williams, who's online, is an architect. And so the three of us, along with a bunch more people, have been working actively on this project. And so one of the things that we want this event to do is be very interactive by asking you to submit responses. So hopefully people have their phones with them, and if you and if you're at home, you can do simply open another. You can log on with your phone, either with the QR code or with the enter code, and you could do that on the phone or open another tab on your computer and work from it that way. So it'll work from any electronic device. So if you take a minute to go to menti.com and enter this 8-digit number, we're going to do a trial one in just a minute, and then a little bit later on in the presentation, we're going to be asking you a whole series of issues. So are people able to get on?
And are you able to see how many people are accessing it?
I cannot.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll get under, so while people are accessing it, I'll just talk about one event that we did with the school committee on January 30th. We came before the school committee and gave them an initial presentation about the findings of our walkthroughs through the schools and meeting with each of the school principals. And so we're not going to go through that this evening. There's a QR code for that. So here's a trial run. So who are you? So again, there's the Mentimeter code, and look at that. It's working. I love it. And so in this case, you can enter in multiple categories. So if you're a parent, you could also be a business person, or you could be an elected official. So you can enter multiple times on this. And one of the things about this is that it's recording it all. By the way, it's anonymous. We have no way of knowing from whom it's coming. We just have the results, but these results will then be downloaded and presented to the school committee and help focus our efforts from here on out. So let's just give it another minute for people to weigh in on this. They seem to have stopped, so as I move on, you can still stay on that slide for the time being if you haven't done it yet. So what's the agenda for this evening, and and that parallels the scope of the study itself. So we're going to be talking about enrollment projections for the next 10 years. We're going to be just discussing what we did from a building conditions review, also the educational effectiveness review at each of the schools, talk a little bit about class sizes in elementary schools across the district, and then we'll have a grade configuration discussion and then a schedule. So NESDEC, New England School Development Council, is one of the things that they do is enrollment projections, and so they look at it historically and into the future. And so Westford has known that the population has been declining. What we're seeing here is over the last 10 years, especially in elementary schools, it was declining, but the last few years it's been leveling out. And so what we're looking at here is the elementary populations on the top line, the high school population on the middle line, and the middle school population on the lower blue line. And this is historical. What we're looking at into the future, it's a very flat line. There's minor fluctuations, as there always will be, but basically, as we look into the future, the population at each of the grade levels is expected to remain quite stable. And so there is a 10 or 12 page report that goes into this in more detail with actual numbers, and that will be included in the draft and final reports. But this is as much as we want to spend time on this evening. So the building conditions, we had a crew of architects and engineers go through each of the 9 schools plus the central admin building and looked at engineers from site and structural, architects, plumbing engineers, fire protection, heating and ventilating, and electrical. And I'm not going to read through these categories, but some of these categories here: circulation, playgrounds, parking, handicapped accessibility, interior material conditions. We identify what these components are and in what condition they are in. And that results in a report that will be in part of the larger report at about 450 pages of data. And so that will feed into just the overall understanding of the buildings, but will also feed into a spreadsheet that the town is able to look at from a capital planning standpoint. What pieces and components of the schools need to be addressed right away or in the near future, and what's in a very good shape. So as I said, it's quite detailed, and it'll give a lot of information for the town. Educational effectiveness. What this is all about is how are the buildings working today for teaching and learning, and for this we met with each of the principals in the district. We interviewed them, and then we walked the school together and talked about all these different components. So from the educational spaces, are there spaces that are missing that you'd like to have? Or how do the room sizes compare to the Massachusetts School Building Authority's guidelines? And do you have enough spaces? Or are there spaces in the future that you anticipate needing? So that's part of it. The other part of it is how does the building react to the issues of teaching and learning, the quality of the environment, just, is it a pleasant place to be, ventilation and lighting, furniture, and the flexibility of that, technology, acoustics. And so all of these things are looked at each of the schools, and again, there's another chapter in the report that will speak directly to this. Class sizes. So this lists each of the schools. On the left are pre-K elementary schools and the number of classrooms per school in each of the grades, and the number of students in those rooms as of December of this year. And so, and then we average it across by grade level and down into the schools. And so the average class size in the Robinson School is 20.83, and that number in the lower right-hand corner of each school, and 20.33 at 20.5. So very, very consistent. Abbott, the class sizes are a little bit lower. The reason for that, by design, is that the classrooms, Abbott is in the old Westford Academy building, and the classroom sizes are smaller than most of the other elementary classrooms. So the school district has specifically designed those class sizes to be smaller because of the classroom. So that's a little bit of an anomaly, but when we look at these average class sizes from school to school to school, it's really quite amazing how consistent and how equitable the administration has been able to balance each of the schools. The school district itself, the pre-K to 2 schools, Robinson, Nabnasset, and Miller, and they then feed to the Abbott, that feeds to the Stony Brook, that feeds to the Academy, Miller to Day, and at Day, and after Day, half of the students go to Stony Brook and half go to Blanchard, and Robertson, Christofouli go to Blanchard, and all obviously to the Academy. But your district is pre-K 2, 3, 5, middle schools, which 6, 8, and high school 9, 12. And so this is simply a calculation of how many sections per grade level there are in each of the schools. So we're looking at, at the pre-K 2 level, we're looking at 53 classrooms. And so we've got in the elementary schools across pre-K to 5, we've got 106 classrooms, and then on the right-hand side, you're seeing number of classrooms by grade level. And so these are all things that we are looking at as we talk about the future and how do we, how can it continue to function, or if it changes, how might that happen?
All right, could you mute your, so we don't get this way we won't get the.
There we go.
There we go, okay. So that takes us to really the purpose of our conversation tonight, is one of the things we want to talk about is our current configuration, which Phil just walked us through, and then if we were to look at the buildings that we have and we look at the number of sections that we have, are there alternative considerations that we could think about for the way in which we have organized our elementary schools specifically? Part of the data that they collected when they first went through all of the schools with the engineers, and then Phil sat down with all of the principals and had lengthy discussions about programming and about needs within the building. And one of the things that he talked about, that he asked all of the educators too, was their current, or their perspective on the configurations that we have. And one of the things that he would ask is, he would ask about fifth grade. What are your thoughts about fifth grade? Knowing that there are some communities that have actually brought fifth grade to the middle school. So there are some schools that are 5 to 8, or might be 5, 6, 7, 8, different configurations that might exist. Across the board, all of our principals really express the need for fifth grade to stay with the elementary schools, and that it really is an elementary grade level. And so one of the things we're looking at when we're just giving examples specifically is talking about, well, we have our current configuration, but might we consider having a K to 5 school and rethink the grades that are in each one of our elementary schools, so that you can see on the slide here that we might be looking at more of a neighborhood school as opposed to the sister school concept. One of the things we want to look at is the different pros and cons to these things, and that's some of the things we're going to be asking all of you who are joining us this evening about your perspectives to those things. The idea of the transitions that exist within our grade levels right now are things that we want to be talking about. And if we were to consider some of the different alternative configurations, what opportunities might that present? One of the things that exists right now in our current configuration, which we didn't talk about when Phil was talking about how how they track, or how the students go through there, is we have some very specific special education programs in some schools. So we also do have, based on our model right now, we do have some students who might actually have to change based on the supports, go from one K to 2 school. They might actually find themselves going to a different 3 to 5 school, and then could find themselves going back again to a different middle school. And if we were able to support more of the true neighborhood schools and having students in a K to 5 model, might we also be able to rethink, or at least expand, the special education supports within some of our specialized programs? We might not be able to expand them to every single school, but a perfect example right now would be our REACH program exists at the Miller School, and then the Crisafulli School, and then Stony Brook, and then the Academy. Well, if Miller and Crisafulli both were K-5 schools, then in theory, the programs that are already supported there would still be able to be supported there, and we would actually be able to expand the number of schools that are providing the support at that grade level, if that makes sense. I'm seeing nodding here, so that's good, and if you're at home, I hope that made sense. But so that's sort of the idea of what we're talking about. So what we're hoping tonight is, again, to get some more specific feedback from the people who are joining us. Some of the Mentimeter slides that we've already played with that Phil talked about, he's going to walk us through some others. We're going to ask for different perspective on priorities, and then there's going to be some open text opportunities for you to help brainstorm pros and cons to different types of things. And then our goal is to take all of this information and this feedback and this input to help us as we're looking at what we think potential recommendations might look like as we move forward as well, too. And one other thing that, Rosemary will probably say this too, so if I'm jumping ahead, I apologize, but for people who are paying attention, there will be other meetings as we go through this process when we roll out the actual report. So what Phil talked about, all the data that's going to be in the report, we're going to have public meetings where they're going to present all of those findings to everybody, so people will be able to have access to that as well, too.
And another question I asked when meeting with the elementary teachers, principals, was what did they think of the grade configurations?
Right.
And they're all managing quite well with the grade configuration that they have, but when asked would they prefer, from an educational standpoint, the continuity of a K-5 school, every one of the educators said yes. So there have been people joining us online as we've been going through. So this is just one more opportunity to get everyone onto Mentimeter by opening another window in your browser, or going to menti.com and entering this 4-digit code, or simply doing a screenshot with your camera on the QR code, and it will get you right to the response area. And so what happens, these are just examples of how this information will spit out. You already identified who you are. On the left-hand side, we present an issue or a question, and then you have an opportunity to type in your response. It will show up in boxes, and again, as you enter information and hit respond, you can then go and enter it again, enter another box. So you can enter on each slide multiple times. There's one slide where we ask you to prioritize, and you can see that chart, multicolored chart in the upper right, and it starts to look like that. And again, just as the numbers were moving up and down, these will move side to side based on your responses. Back to who are you? We'll just give people a minute to do that. Again, we presumably have a few more here than the first time. So if you did it the first time, I'd love for you to do it again, because this is the one that we will bring forward to the report process. So we've got a lot of parents and a good number of educators. So that number at the top is the number of respondents in each category. So we've got 28 educators at the moment wired in, 34 parents, and we've got a student. And again, you can enter multiple times. You can be a parent and a business person, or and so on. So we'll just give it another minute and move on to the next question. I think this is good participation. This is, you know, if we did this all in person, we would have a fraction of the number of people participating than what we have right now. So I think this is a great tool. Okay, so here are your schools. So now I'm speaking directly to you parents out there. And that is the next slide. And parents, which schools do your children attend? And again, you can enter multiple times. If you've got someone in an elementary school, a middle school, and the academy, you can enter all three, and it's going to take them. So Abbott's winning so far. Okay, so, and if you haven't weighed in on this, you can stay on that for a moment as we move to the next question. So here's an opportunity. Working with the school committee, we developed 9 potential priorities: sustainability, flexibility for differentiated and personalized learning, flexibility for collaboration, accessibility, indoor environments, meaning the mechanical and lighting and acoustics of the quality of the space. And so as you enter your top choice, there it is, it starts to change. So so you enter your second one and your third choice onto the 9th choice itself. So I love watching these things
Right.
flip back and forth. So flexibility for learning and indoor environments, safety and security seem to be at the head of the class here. Community use, people are weighing in, but I think it looks like people are more concerned about how it's reacting for the children themselves. So this is great information. We'll stay on this for
Yeah, it takes
a
a little bit
minute
longer
because,
to go through
because you
them all.
have to work your way down, and you can actually change your mind on this too.
You can.
I think so. So as you finish that, we're going to move into the next area, and that is, are there priorities that you have that weren't part of those 9? And you could just type in priorities and they will show up in boxes. And other things to take into account as we move through the development of options. The cost, equity across the buildings, staff facilities, focus on emotional learning, equity across the schools, air quality, continuity, other people saying costs, advanced courses in the high school. Right. So this, look at that, just like magic. Students per classroom, air quality, appropriate space for music and art, healthy environments, equity again talked about, cost of this proposal. Well, we don't have any proposals at the moment, but as we develop options, we're first going to look at it from the standpoint of teaching and learning, but as we then narrow that down, we will apply costs to them. Social SELs, social emotional learning, staffing, so, efficient bus routes and healthier school start times, STEM electives in high school, continuity with siblings, that I'm assuming would speak to K-5 rather than the 3 to 5. I think that's what the respondent was saying. Avoiding days split between middle schools. Avoiding day, meaning
Right.
the day elementary school having to split its population
And
between
that's
the
repeated
two.
as well, too. Somebody else talks about it
Okay,
with Miller Day.
toll on day Miller students being split between Stony Brook and Blanchard. And there's a lot of discussion in the educational world about number of transitions that take place, and does that take a toll on children? I'd like my kids to attend the schools we bought our house intentionally for them to attend. Great.
Oh, more.
Keep
More
going.
come in.
Okay. Room for community and school administration, teacher retention, length of bus ride, equity across the schools, environmentally conscious, class size. We see that popping up a couple of times. Attention to smaller support programs in terms of spacing and resources, improved service options and beyond reach, equity, cost, convenience for parents dropping off and picking up elementary kids in one place. And someone responding, even it won't benefit my 5 kids, I do think there would be a huge benefit to a K-5 or even a K-4 school versus the current setup. School start times. Later start time for Westford Academy, bus route impacts, and we're going to be looking at that soon. Early Childhood Center. This is terrific. Building repairs instead of quick fixes. Improved school calendar, more parking at the academy. I don't want my kids going to school with 5th graders, okay? Welcoming entrances that are clearly identified. Another discussion of reach. Currently, Westford spends far less per pupil than other towns. They need to invest more into their students, and it continues on. Separate 6th grade, accessibility for all. And again, so all of this is going to be made available to you. You're going to have an opportunity to see all of this gathered together. Anti-bullying, including cyberbullying. Start time after 8 a.m. for Westford Academy. School start time for high school. Does more efficient bus routes result in cost savings? Wow, this is great.
Yeah.
This is great. Okay, you can, again, if you have other comments, you can stay on that for a moment before you move on to the next screen. So here's an opportunity again to type in, it's an open question with boxes, the current grade configuration of pre-K 2 and 3-5. So do you like, what do you think is good about this current system? We're going to do a pros and cons a couple of times here. So here's the pros of the current system. Don't see any pros. Okay. Pre-K 2 remains more innocent. Grouping of similar ages. Opportunity for more students who may not live in your neighborhood. Love the fact that they're with kids just a few years either side of them. Very nice, very thoughtful comments being made here. Separation of age groups. Buildings won't need modifications. Nothing. Smaller communities of similarly aged children. Provides more classes per grade in a building so that it can be easier to separate kids who need to be separated from each other. Right, the number of sections of a grade level is higher under this grade configuration. Age gap between the lowest and the highest ages is low. Small, closer age groupings. Culture is geared towards age bracket. More developmentally appropriate. You know, we used to do this with a flip chart and try and
Trying to write everyone's.
write
Right.
these down as people
Shout them out.
shout it out. And this really gives a lot more people an opportunity. And we couldn't get this much down in a flip chart, so. Buses don't have 12-year-olds with 5-year-olds. Again, these are the pros for your current grade configuration. So there's a lot of people who seem to like keeping the students in smaller age groupings. School libraries would dramatically have to change if we combine schools. Great. Okay, so now we're going to move to the cons. What do you see as things that you might not like about the current grade configuration? Too many changes, too many transitions, anxiety for kids when moving schools, extra drop-offs by parents, transitions, higher cost for busing. So, none. So some people like it the way it is. It's the best. I see transitions and too many transitions popping up a lot here. Loss of opportunity to create buddy classes between younger and older grade children, reading buddies, and that's one of the things that we did talk about with the elementary school principals, is that was they saw as a real pro in a alternate configuration. Takes longer to drop off and pick up. It's been positive for my child. Anxiety from changing schools. And it's interesting, I think we had a few more pros than we do cons, but relatively close in number from the people. We see the number in the lower right-hand corner there. Students don't have the ability to grow with the staff, especially students in special ed, having to work with entirely new staff and liaisons. Okay, so let's move on to a unified K-5 configuration. What do you, as an alternate to be potentially explored, what do you see as the pros for that? Keep siblings together, less transitions. More continuity. Siblings. Better collaboration, less busing. Help staff get to know students and vice versa. I don't understand that. Last slide allowed only one answer. It shouldn't have, I'm sorry if that's the case. I thought when we set it up, every one of these allowed you to answer multiple times. I'm hoping that's the case. I hope that was just an anomaly on that one slide. No racing between schools to drop off and pick up. Consistency, less anxiety, teacher collaboration, and classroom sharing experiences. More familiarity with school buildings and staff. I couldn't answer the last question twice, so, okay, second person who said that, so sorry about that. You will see a slide later on that will give you an address to send an email. So if there's more things that you want to say, make note of them, and in a few minutes you'll see a path for you to be able to do that. Easier on parents' schedule, longer time to develop school spirit, not switching mascots so often. Love it. This may be a benefit to parents, but not to students. So, shorter bus rides. Better for building community. School committee, you got a lot to think about here.
Yeah, we sure
Right.
do.
Value of art, music, and PE teachers will be part of the,
IST, IEP teams, right.
okay. Okay, and again, you can stay on that if you'd like. So we're going to move on to the cons of a alternate unified grade configuration. So just a couple more interactive slides, and when will they eat lunch? Well,
Good question.
we can figure that out.
Change is hard, yeah.
I'd hate to be in the 3rd to 5th grade stuck in the Robinson building. Building modifications would be necessary. Yes, they would. Fewer sections in some of the schools. Fewer sections would mean less teacher collaboration. Fewer students to meet before middle school. Special education teachers can be more focused on a tighter age range. Schedule alignments is difficult. Do we have space capacity for everyone in all grades? There's enough classrooms, and again, that will be addressed as when we start to address options. We will show how the grades would fit into the schools. Too broad a spectrum on age and maturity levels. Bigger age gaps, bathrooms and playgrounds playground modifications. So these are all issues that, yes, have to be addressed in that approach. Huge age gap between 4-year-olds and 11-year-olds. Would preschool be in a separate location? Again, as we get into the options, we will look at how that might configure. I don't want my Ks on bus with 5th grader. Bullying is a result of school culture, not age differences. Okay. So, I'm not going to read them all. People, they're still coming in. So, we're going to ultimately have these both in an Excel spreadsheet form as well as in a PDF form. So
Great.
to be able to give to the you and the community.
And just to kind of reiterate, since we did have the problem with the cons for the K to 2, 3 to 5 configuration, we're not using this qualitatively. These really are, we're not using it quantitatively.
Right.
We're not counting responses. We're really using to find themes and ideas of what people are thinking. So
Right.
don't be alarmed. I think hopefully everybody had a chance to at least get the main ideas across for that one. I feel like we covered
Yeah.
a lot of different ideas.
I think
Great.
so.
Great. And so, last interactive slide, do you have a preference with the, there's a whole lot of questions here. The more questions posed than answers given, but do you have an initial reaction to this? So I'm going to move on, but again, if you haven't responded to this, you can leave it open because that's the last interactive slide for you. Okay.
So we are, just to talk about schedule right now, and where we are currently and what to look forward to. So we are currently at the first community workshop, and this kicks off the research and the work that Phil and I will be doing to come up with different master plan options. And from that, we will then be able to work on this draft report of the master plan and the options with some conceptual cost modeling, depending on which options we go forward with. After the master plan options have been thought of and worked through, then we will hold another community workshop with you and present those master plan options. After that, we will put together a final report in which we will have narrowed down all of the options to move forward with, and we will present the final findings with you at the end of, we're looking out at May now, sometime in May.
And that'll have costs associated with it.
Yes, it will. And that will be our recommendation to the town, to the school.
Great.
Okay. So, as I said, if you have additional thoughts.
Go ahead and unmute.
Sorry?
Rosemary can mute again.
Can't get there, here we go. So if you have additional thoughts on what you heard this evening or on the process that we're going through, a very simple email address, masterplan@westfordk12.us. And those responses will go directly to Dr. Chu, Chris Sanders, Chair of the School Committee, and Jeff Goodwin, the Facilities Director. So we encourage you to do that, and With that, I'd like to express my thanks for the strong participation. This is, as I said, this is a whole lot better than the flip charts and a lot more detail and a lot more opportunity for members of the community to be involved. I think this is a great tool. We'll look forward to using this in the past, but a huge thanks to all of you, those of you who are here, as well as those at home who you all took time to participate in this important subject.
Great. You want to mute yours and
Takes me a while to get to that. Here we go.
we do the dance of the mute so that the people at home then won't have to worry about the different echoings. But I echo what you just said, actually. And thank you, everybody who came out here to join us. For those of you who are out here with us, there are 72 people who have been participating through the webinar as well, too. We have recorded this evening, and we'll post it for a short period of time for people who weren't able to watch it live tonight, who would at least be able to follow the conversation. The Mentimeter, people who are watching the recordings won't be able to contribute to the Mentimeter, because we'll actually need to turn that into, like you had said, Excel and PDF so that we can look at that data. But I want to thank everybody for your attention, thank everybody for participating, and like I said, there will be other opportunities as well as we have even more information. But with that, I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your evening, and you are preparing for the loss of an hour of sleep this weekend, which is, I think, the worst weekend of the year myself. But I'm trying to prepare mentally at this moment in time to lose an hour of sleep this weekend as we spring forward. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks.